Oh God, everyone looks fat on these chairs.
Yes, I know.
They're awful.
Best they could do for us.
What do we have? Who is here?
7, 9, 10.
Where's 10? Who's 10?
10.
Who's 10?
10's over here, man.
10's over here. Where's Waleed? where's Jessica Rowe? Are we keeping you from something?
That's Max.
Huh? Oh, it's Mike. No Jessica Rowe, no Waleed. That's a shame. That's a shame. And no, who's the other guy? Carl something?
Stefanovic.
3 million a year, and he can't interview a gay guy. Send these people
going to Rwanda.
Send these people to Rwanda to shit themselves. All right.
Before I have some presents for you.
Oh, I love presents. Nobody ever gets me.
I do.
What do you have? Well, you don't know.
Penthouse.
Here is your very own copy of Dangerous.
Oh, thank you.
Printed in Australia by Wilkinson Publishing.
5 weeks on the New York
Penthouse.
Times bestseller list, and now available in Australia. Thank you.
Nothing upsets feminists more than your very own copy of
Penthouse magazine. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. There you go. So you should. Next month will be me on the cover, just so you know.
It's very unlikely you'll ever surpass this, but I certainly hope you do.
No, well.
Your very own son of
No,
Milo.
I would like to imagine that after this, Australia will have a newspaper of Milo. We'll see.
And on behalf of Penthouse
Aww.
and all the people that look forward to you righting the wrongs of political correctness, your very own 10,000 tickets sold.
This is the best
club.
kind of present, a testament to my extraordinary success. Thank you. No, I'm not done yet.
Very good.
I will put these in a bag with you over here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's lovely.
Very well. There you go.
Both sides European, but no contact, please. Okay. Well, he
yours
doesn't
can
want
only
to
be
make up
one
on
side.
him. I don't want the smears on me, you know. I am here. I'm sort of a one-man wrecking crew, stroke messiah. I'm here to fix all sorts of problems that are rearing their head. Australia it's become a sort of front in the culture wars. It's become a key battleground in the fight for Western civilization. You have this sort of emerging media who are both, they're both biased and cowardly, as I think that we've seen from their booking and then cancellation of me when they realized they didn't want to get in a TV studio with me. I think if you take these people who at the same time call me a sort of clown and a trickster and a whatever, but also don't want to go on live TV with me because they're worried that they might lose a debate or they might be persuaded about something, I think it says more about them than it does about me. I noticed also, by the way, is anyone from The Guardian in here? Hopefully not, but did you notice they changed their headline? There was some hideous ham planet wrote a piece about me, and it said, Milo Yiannopoulos has a huge fan base in Australia. Men must call him out.
Men indeed.
And then about 20 minutes later, they changed it to, if Milo has a huge fan base in Australia, comma, men must call him out. It's like some screeching...
The editor read it.
Some screeching cardigan cat piss stench, whatever, as sort of, don't admit he's famous, don't admit he's popular. There's something happening, this sort of populist, nationalist, anti-political correctness, anti-feminist uprising in the West generally. And I think some of the products of that, Brexit, Trump, me, we're not just going to go away because you don't have us on your TV shows, because you sneer at us, because you call us names. I've been called every name it is possible to call a human being, and it has made no difference because this traditional tactic of leftist name calling simply doesn't work anymore. I was very flattered to have got the attention of some, who is the woman? The Green Party?
Hanson Young.
Your resident wacky lefties.
There's a few of them. It's like an asylum there.
No, this guy writes a letter saying he's.
Di Natale.
Oh, thank you. I have it. It's. Well, it's printed too small for me, but this who knows? You've got parliamentarians, people who are the beneficiaries of all of the things that make the West great: freedom of speech, democracy, property rights, capitalism. And this is a system in which they succeed, casting out the right of free speech and calling invited guests to Parliament House, white supremacists and all this kind of nonsense. Well, it's not going to work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. One of the things that's been really remarkable to me, talking to Australians, and the few people I bumped into as I've been here for a few hours, and the fans that have written to me before this tour, is that you are now becoming, as I said earlier, sort of a front in this new cultural war. You're becoming, in this country, a sort of test bed. You have, on the one hand, some interesting and sound policies. Your immigration system is alleged to be the envy of the world. Certainly a lot of Americans say so. Republicans like to say that.
It is.
Sorry?
It is.
It seems very sensible to me. But then by the same token, you have this sort of weird, media elite, which is so utterly detached from the concerns and priorities and language of ordinary people, the sort of ordinary people that like me and I like, that I think Australia might need saving from itself sometime soon. So I'm here as a sort of warning from America that this country is great. It's almost like the best bits of the UK and the best bits of America put together. Has a reputation for common sense and fun, and being a decent place to be that is unencumbered with the sort of odious and tiresome culture wars that obtain everywhere else. And it seems to me that is at risk of being lost. So 10,000 people are coming to see me, which I'm very flattered to
I actually might need to get you another one.
Is it more now?
It is more.
Is it more?
Yeah.
Where are we in 12?
Maybe.
So I count these things. It's my.
I'll say 14, but I'm not gonna commit.
Oh, really?
I'm not gonna commit.
Okay, fine. Well, maybe after the. Okay, so watch this.
I'll get
space.
you another one.
Fine. I've waffled for long enough. Questions, please. And I like to two rules for my Q&As. One of them is it's compliment question. So you're free to compliment my outfit, my hair, something else you like about me, and then you can ask a question. And also I do a sort of reverse diversity policy where the first three questioners have to be straight white males. So if there's a straight white man who has a question, anywhere in the room.
I've got a question. Not a straight white man.
Well, then it's not your turn, sweetheart.
How have you found your reception with the Australian media as compared to the American media?
How have I what?
How have you found your reception with the Australian media as compared to the American media?
He's not straight, by the way.
Excuse me.
Well, I don't. Is he not?
No, well, he works for me.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, I know.
You know. So you can ask him.
No, there's a sort of weird schism happening, and I think the same thing has happened in England, where you've got a sort of rump of essentially common sense journalists. Most of them seem to work for Murdoch over here. And then you have like a sort of weird, wacky, the Sydney Morning Herald? Is there anyone here from the Sydney
Fairfax.
Morning Herald? Fairfax Media
Media.
are sort of universally dishonest. Everything that I read from Fairfax Media contains at least 3 disingenuous statements and at least 3 outright lies. So I probably won't give them any more interviews on this trip, but it's a weird sort of schism between very reasonable, sensible, fun, amusing people, Daily Mail, the Murdoch papers, Penthouse has been lovely to me, obviously, and then a sort of weird kind of like activist leftist faction in the press who seem to want to fix the world by making sure nobody ever cracks a joke about women or whatever. It's very tiresome. And the thing is, it's not going to work here like it hasn't worked in the UK. We sort of imported the culture war element in your media, but the population's just not buying it. Like Australians don't like it, so just stop it. Like this feminist malarkey on television, your viewers don't like it, and that's why they're leaving you. So just stop it. The next question.
What would you say to Sarah Hanson-Young?
You're breaking my rule, but I'm gonna allow it.
What would you say to Sarah Hanson-Young who wants you banned from the Senate?
Bless her heart. Bless her heart. She thinks that that the authoritarian, totalitarian tactics of the far left are going to silence, truth, reason, logic, and fun. I mean, I just try to describe the world as I see it, amuse people along the way, have some fun with it, and tell lots of truths wrapped in good jokes. You can't, silence that with with this sort of dour, vindictive, spiteful name-calling that she seems intent on doing. I think most of Australia is in the same position I'm in. We just sort of look on and laugh. The event in Popular Parliament House will continue with heightened security thanks to the efforts of your wacky Green Party, but I just sort of think blessed. Do you remember that petition? There was a petition to try to stop me coming into the country, and their best efforts, they tried. Their very best efforts managed to garner 950 signatures at the same time that a petition supporting my entry was at 9,500. This gives you some indication of how wrong your broadcast media is getting it, wandering into this politically correct cul-de-sac, while the rest of the country just thinks, what are you doing?
You mentioned Trump and Brexit. Trump is a politician. Brexit was a movement, if you like.
Yeah.
What do you stand for? Do you want to be a politician and sort of create a political movement, or is it purely
too much
sort of
integrity.
controversy?
No,
Or
well, I don't know.
what is it that you want to see?
I
change?
prefer to see myself as a cultural figure than a political one. So I think my core principle is freedom of expression and free speech. If I had been doing this in the 90s, I think I would be up against the religious right. And I think that I would be criticizing them when they made bogus claims about video games and death metal, prompting school shootings and leading to, all kinds of moral putrefaction in the populace. I don't think any of that was true. I similarly don't think it's true when feminists and Black Lives Matter activists and the hand-wringing social justice warriors of the progressive left claim that words are the same as violence, claim that that offending somebody, this sort of weird subjective new law, new system of laws that we have. Like, you have one here. What is it called? The one that everyone's being sued under right now. 18C. Now, this is the worst kind of lawmaking because it depends on a subjective personal analysis of being offended or being hurt by something that is unfalsifiable and unverifiable. It's not just that it's open to abuse. It is on the statute books to be abused. I mean, these subjective laws are the same as political correctness. Political correctness is not another kind of politeness. It's not a way of being nice to people. It is a set of political weaponry designed to marginalize and ultimately criminalize libertarian and conservative points of view. I'm a free speech warrior. I have found common cause with libertarians and conservatives in the US at the moment. If I had been born in a different era, that might have been different. But the plain fact of the matter is that there is an unprecedented assault on our right to express ourselves as we please, and it is coming exclusively from the left. Australia, I hope, is a far too sensible place to allow this to happen. I hope that you'll see it for what it is and reject it utterly. But it seems to me that it is just bubbling up at the moment and sort of reaching some kind of boiling point. And I hope that my presence here can help to kick these people back where they belong, which is sobbing in the corner, wondering why they don't have a boyfriend. Anybody else?
Just as a follow-up,
Sure.
almost a follow-up from that question. As though, say, feminists have quotas for women in the workplace, do you have any, say, 2 or 3 tangible targets on the issues of feminism and, say, Islam that you'd like to achieve?
Well, perhaps worse than the massed hordes in the Middle East who want to sort of colonize the West and want to enter our democracies, overturn them and install Sharia. Worse than those people are the leftists who pander to it and mollycoddle it. And I think if you look at someone like that ridiculous woman you have, Clementine Ford, who has looked at what's happening in America and decided that, that will work for us. Let's just import all of the worst, most poisonous, vindictive, spiteful, and divisive identity politics and culture, war stuff from America, and let's just drop it into Australia and see what happens. Which is very unpopular for a simple reason that she's completely batty and wrong about everything, and everyone hates her. But I would like to see some of the people who have, in such a cowardly fashion, refused to interview me, or had me booked for their shows and then cancelled in the case of 3 of your major stations, at least 2 of whom are here today. I would like to see them restore those bookings, because very clearly there is an appetite in Australia to have a discussion around free speech, around the limits on it, what it's acceptable to say, whether trolly, provocative hell-raising serves a useful democratic function, serves a useful function in free speech debates. Clearly Australians are hankering after a discussion of this. 10,000 of them have shown up just to hear me babble on stage for 2 hours. That should tell you something. And it's those discussions aren't happening on your TV stations and in your newspapers. And so I would very much like for some of those TV stations to reverse their cowardly decisions. I would like for any prominent feminist or Black Lives Matter activist or social justice warrior or anyone who has a decent standing in Australian media who wants to go toe to toe with me, get in touch with us. I'll put you on stage live in my shows. We have audiences of 1,800, 2,000 for these shows, per night. I'll put you on stage. Let's go toe to toe. Let's have it out. My view is very simple. I want an open marketplace of ideas. I believe in classical liberalism. I believe in JS and all liberty. I think people should be able to say, do, and be whatever they want, so long as they don't hurt other people. And I believe in an open marketplace of ideas. That's not what currently obtains in Western democracies, where the left runs everything. But it should. So if there's somebody in Australia who believes they can go toe to toe with me, get in touch with us, and I'll put you on stage live, and let's see how it goes. Because it's been a very long time since anyone really, in America or the UK or here, has had a really serious, substantive, fun debate about the limits of free speech in a political context. So I would love for somebody to get in touch. Waleed Ali, your guy on the project, seems like a total coward, which is why he does such little live and so many pre-recorded and heavily edited interviews. But I would love to have him on stage with me. Let's see what he's really made of when he's not got a camera crew and 2 days to edit the interview to make people look like idiots behind him. Let's see what he actually has. Let's see his intellectual substance. Let's see if he has any ballast there. Even poor, dear, sweet, stupid Clementine. I'd be very happy to have her on stage and see if she actually believes some of the ludicrous nonsense she says on Twitter. I'd be perfectly happy to debate any of the Green politicians. What you'll tend to find is that they will say, oh, he's not worth debating with because he's just a clown, and a provocateur, and he just does this stuff for attention, all the rest of it. Well, if I can still beat you, what does that say about you? So let's have the debate. That's all I want. That's all I want. I believe in freedom of expression and creativity, and I just want people to be able to be you and say whatever they want. And at the time, right now for conservatives and libertarians, it's completely impossible. With the result that 75, you see the Cato Institute study in the United States, 75% of people who describe themselves as conservative were afraid of expressing their political opinions in public. Meanwhile, 30% of people who describe themselves as very left-wing, had the same view. It's very clear what's happening is conservatives and libertarians, are having their opinions criminalized, which I think Mark Latham is experiencing right now in this country. Having their opinions demeaned and marginalized. Christians and conservatives are being routinely belittled and demeaned in culture, with the result that they lash out with things like Brexit and Trump. And people are surprised at why this is happening. Well, I'm not, and I would like for us to step. I call people names. Of course, I'm like one of the worst offenders, but I do it to demonstrate the left has been calling conservatives names for 30 years, and conservatives have just taken it. It's just like, But now I think it's time for them to suck up a little bit and have a little taste of their own medicine. And I think that there's one waspish gay guy who calls you a fat has-been now and again. You can deal with it, you guys. You progressives. It's time for them to be treated as they have treated others, and it's time for us to start having open, fair debates in public about stuff that really matters, and for us to stop marginalizing, demeaning, ridiculing, and ultimately outlawing conservative and libertarian points of view. Anybody else?
Milo, what's the message that you want to send at Parliament House next week?
I would like to say that right now conservatives are the beneficiaries of this new free speech movement. It tends to be benefiting conservative politicians, it tends to be benefiting libertarian causes. But just 2 decades ago, that wasn't the case. Just 2 decades ago, it was the establishment right who were the problem. So I would like to, when I go and speak to your liberals and go speak to your senators and whatnot, I would like to tell them, look, you have the moral high ground right now because it's the progressive left who are profoundly opposed to free expression for a variety of batty and insubstantial and unfair reasons. But you have an opportunity to retain the moral high ground, not just by winning this argument in the next couple of election cycles, but by retaining a commitment to free speech and free expression and classical liberalism. So, the pendulum of free speech swings, in many, backwards and forwards in 30-year cycles, it seems. But I would like for your conservative politicians and for conservative politicians everywhere to retain their commitment to free speech. Even when they're winning all the elections, because it's always a habit when you're in power to start, shutting your enemies up. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? It's like if there's a sort of this sort of like irritant, like the Green Party or Clementine, just sort of like nipping at your heels, just to sort of like a mosquito, just to get it. And the tendency is to what?
It's a very big mosquito.
Well, the tendency, what you really want to do is just bat it away and stamp on it. Well, actually, you should just see if that mosquito has anything to teach you. Anyone else?
Milo, straight white male here. Was it 2 compliments?
Sorry?
Was it 2 compliments and then a question?
Well, normally I insist on compliment, question, but nobody seems to be obeying the rules. So
Well,
I think at this stage it's pandemonium. So go ahead.
Love the frosted tips and the jacket. It looks like you're dressed for battle.
Dressed for what?
Dressed for battle.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, it's Dolce & Gabbana. It's a one-off. No, I think it was a catwalk thing from last week. But thank you very much. Do you have another compliment?
I was just going to say.
Question.
Just 2 for today.
Okay, and the question?
I just wanted to ask about what you're wearing.
Oh, okay. Versace, Balmain, Louis Vuitton, Dolce & Gabbana, and the jewelry is all custom made for me in New York. Thank you.
How much were you made from the tour?
I don't know. I don't really.
Don't know.
No, I mean, I know that there's. I mean, you could probably do the math yourself. What's like 13,000, 14,000 tickets, and some people are spending like 1,000 to come for like private dinners, and some people are just spending to come see the show.
We'll let the accountants work it out afterwards.
Yeah, I don't.
Kind of my
I don't know. I don't want the IRS to like have me saying anything. I don't know. I'm not really driven by money. Like I have money myself already anyway. I just want to make people laugh, to entertain them, to educate them. I'm a pleaser, so like a lot of celebrities, I guess, I just want people to be happy and smile and leave the room, having had a good evening. And if I have some kind of positive societal benefit as well, which I seem to be having, that's kind of like a bonus for me. But whatever I earn from these tours, sort of goes into the hopper.
Milo, any particular Australians?
Oh, I think she just had you. Go ahead.
Politicians in Canberra at the moment are currently debating same-sex marriage laws.
I thought it was over. I thought
No, that
No,
was
the vote hasn't happened.
I thought we lost. What?
We had a public vote,
Uh-huh.
which the politicians in Parliament House are now debating the bill
Oh, yes, that's right.
on the laws.
Yeah.
You have previously urged Australians that they should have voted against the
Yes.
questions that we were asked to
Yes.
put to whatever.
Yes.
What's your message to politicians as they're debating whether the law should be introduced?
Well, the reason I wanted Australians to vote against same-sex marriage, or at least abstain, is that you have no constitutional protection for freedom of religious expression and religious conscience in this country as there is in the United States. So I feel comfortable with gay marriage in the United States because there is constitutional protection for freedom of religious conscience and freedom of religious belief. You don't have that here. I understand that some of your politicians are currently debating, provisions to ensure that churches and whatnot will be prevented from, any compulsions to perform particular ceremonies and whatever. That is absolutely a prerequisite for passing any legislation like this. The paramount concern must be freedom of religious conscience, not gay people being able to be married. And I say that as a married gay person.
Yeah, one over here.
Sure.
You've been spotted hanging out with people like Richard Spencer, who's a white nationalist. Would you do that again, and do you regret that?
I hung out is a weird way of putting it.
You were singing karaoke on stage with him when he was doing a Nazi salute.
Right, so I was embedded with them, if you like, for a long piece that I wrote for Breitbart called An Establishment Republican's Guide to the Alt-Right, which was probably the most influential and important piece of political journalism published last year. And for that, like any other journalist, I hung out with them. I tried to have drinks with them, talk to them, see what I could get out of them, because I wanted to know who these people really were. You can see from the video fairly clearly that I was set up in that video. It's like I'm up there in my own little world, Mariahing out on the stage, and then the camera turns around and these half-wit lunatic pricks are throwing up Roman salutes. If I'd seen that, which I didn't at the time, I would have walked off stage and told them to go fuck themselves. But no, I'm sorry that happened. But unlike probably any other journalist in America last year and in the first half of this year, I actually tried to spend time with the people that I was reporting on, and I was very uncompromising in my reporting about Richard Spencer. I said he was a racist, and I've repeatedly disavowed him, and I've repeatedly said, that it is completely incompatible with my beliefs. I married a black guy. I don't care about skin color. I care about values, which is why I'm utterly indifferent to anyone's skin color. But I do have reservations about Islam because, as a belief system, rather than a race, I think it's fundamentally incompatible with Western life. I don't have too much more to add to that. I think that it is our job as journalists and reporters to spend large volumes of time with the people that we're going to be reporting on, so we can do so authoritatively. I seem to be the only person in America who was, criticized for that. I realize the optics of the video weren't great, but it's pretty obvious from my life choices that Richard Spencer and I have absolutely nothing in common.
Any particular Australians in a position of power or influence, whether it be a journalist or a celebrity, that you think does a good job?
No. No, I'm kidding. I liked that guy Tony Abbott. I thought he was cool because he was kind of like ballsy and upset all the people that I didn't like either. So I kind of liked him. And he was up against Julia Gillard, who seemed like a complete prick. So I liked Tony Abbott. My experience of Australia has been cultural, not political. So I've enjoyed like Kath and Kim, and everything what's his name? Who does Dame Edna? Barry Humphries. I've enjoyed Kath and Kim. I've enjoyed like a lot of cultural products from Australia, which has helped me to get to know the country a little bit better and to understand some of the little. You have stuff that we have in England, and we're probably the only two countries that have this in common. Like sort of interesting, quirky class system kind of stuff, which I like. As far as like popular, prominent Australians, well, if there's anyone decent in this country, they leave. The thing I think is a shame about Australia is it doesn't really hold on to its talent. Anyone who's really great intellectually leaves and goes to Europe or America. Anyone who's great in entertainment goes to America. So it's tough for me to say, prominent Australians I really, really admire, because you guys don't really hang on to them.
Why do you think that is? What is it about Australian culture
it's
that?
just a really, really long way away from everywhere. I'm on a flight from LA and I'm like, really? But I think it's just really, really far. And it's tough because if you want to be a writer, you've got to be in the hub. If you want to be an actor, you've got to be in Hollywood. And it's like you can commute to LA from New York, but you can't commute to LA from here.
Not yet. They're working on it.
Well, maybe they I don't know. Maybe it's just a function of geography, but you don't seem able to hold on to your talent, which is a pity, because this is evidently a beautiful country with a lot of fantastic people in it. But
Milo,
beyond a certain point, you seem to lose people.
Milo, what kind of things do you think you'd be touching on? You've got a 2-hour show. That's a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've spoken generally about free speech, but can you give us more of a taste about the stuff you'll be looking at?
I will be talking about some Australian people and issues for which you'll have to come to the shows. I'll be touching on a lot of the themes that I talk about, all the time. And then there'll be large portions of the show that are very interactive. I mean, I'm in this sort of liminal period between college lecturer and stand-up. I don't know where I really live or what I really am at the moment. So I'm existing in this strange kind of hinterland where I have like a lot of interactive elements in the show where I'll kind of like pull out people in the audience and talk to them and all the rest of it. I'll be interviewed. I do give a sort of traditional lecture, but it's very joke heavy with slides and all the rest of it, a bit like Ricky Gervais' last tour. So it's a sort of it's a hybrid show that combines chat show, stand-up, college lecture, TV news interview. It's interesting and it's lively and it's quite fast-paced, and a lot of it's determined by the audience. I like to do as long Q&As as possible because I find what people ask me more interesting than what I come up with myself. So you'll have to come along. I think that one of our talk was rescheduled for some like obscure corporate reason. So I don't think I have a Sydney one tomorrow, but it's being rescheduled for I think
Tuesday.
the 5th. Thank you.
Milo, you're doing.
Without you, I wouldn't know anything.
Your PA.
I wouldn't know anything. Sweetie, what day? Yeah, okay.
Milo, I'm interested in the work you're doing on campuses,
Yeah.
and I assume you must have a lot of uni students in your fan base in Australia.
Yes.
Do you have any
All the
advice?
hot ones.
Yeah, good. Any advice for them about how to take back the campuses from the extraordinarily left-wing bias in our universities here?
Thank you for that ideologically sound question.
That's a sensational ride, by the way.
Now you're on board. We like you. You can ask again. I have a list of journalists who are allowed to interview me a second time that I keep in a notebook upstairs. So I'll add you to the list. I just wrote an op-ed for the Australian, which I hope will have been published by now or maybe tomorrow, which sort of says how Conservatives can win it back. And it boils down to Risus et Bellum, which is my motto, which is Latin. It means laughter. For those non-Murdoch journalists who need a little help, it means laughter and war. Kidding. And it's it's the idea that these people only have the power that you give them. They only have the skulls, the nannies, the school moms wanting to rearrange their charges, crayons. They only have the power that you award them. So if you allow somebody to scare or intimidate you out of saying something or expressing a point of view, they win, you lose, end of story. But if you return to them with laughter and with facts, there's not really very much that they can do in response except rage quit, get mad, pull their hair out, scream at the sky. Did you see those protests in the US? There was like a national scream at the sky helplessly day. This is the condition that Daddy and I leave the left in. This is what they have left because they've forgotten how to argue, because they've run everything for 30 years. They've run the schools, they've run universities, the media, entertainment industry. They've forgotten how to argue. They've forgotten, even in many cases, what they actually believe. So it's not difficult to beat them in an argument. My advice to young Conservatives used to be keep your head down, have an easy life, don't cause any trouble. Now it's maybe cause a little bit of trouble. Tease, have a little bit of mischief, always light-hearted. But Conservatives have traditionally lost in the past because they have been fulminating and furious, angry about everything, sort of your Fox News host of folklore. But those folkloric TV hosts have audiences of 70 plus. I think Conservatives now are looking for younger, more fun, more, we're looking for people who are funny and handsome and charming. I'm describing myself. And they want somebody who's going to make them laugh as well as educating them and embolden them, give them the courage to laugh at the left too. The left is self-evidently ridiculous. I'm being interviewed by somebody on TV who pronounces herself a proud feminist, and she's half her head is bald. The rest of it is like bleached and teased to within an inch of its life and like drawn. It's a haircut that says, "Stay away from me," or "I'll eat you." It's a haircut that says that my apartment is tiny. I hate my life and I'll be alone forever. And these are the people who are presuming to lecture the rest of us on how we should live. These overweight, unattractive, miserable, single losers whose lives have not worked out, who want to make the rest of us as unhappy as they are. Well, I decline to be as unhappy as these people are. I simply refuse. I want everybody to be joyful and happy and have a good time. And I think young Conservatives are now, post-Brexit and Trump and with all of the stuff that's happening in culture, I think they have this new sense of energy and mischief and defiance, which is serving them well. It's really winding the left up. The left is really, really mad right now. And they don't really have anything except, we're angry! And it sort of doesn't really boil down to much more than that. So the key thing for Conservatives is to have a smile on your face. Because, the thing that they have traditionally done is either been angry or smug. But there's no harm in being gracious while you're there.
Can we do last question, please?
Why did you keep your venue secret on this tour?
Well, it's obvious because you guys, no offense to anyone specifically, write stories about impending protests, hoping to produce them. Every time I have ever had a talk with a public venue, before, and look, I have a very sophisticated operation as far as looking at protests. My head of security is, like an ex-military intelligence, whatever. We know when protests are boiling up when people are going to show up and make a fuss, right? And we know when journalists are just inventing things out of whole cloth. So every time I name a specific venue, journalists will invent the fact that there are protests planned, hoping to create that reality, right? And then in many cases, of course, they do create that reality. It becomes a self-perpetuating thing. Why? Because these journalists are not reporting the facts, because that's not a fact. They're reporting a reality they wished existed. So we have no option. I mean, this is so funny. I mean, like, I crack some jokes. I tell some stories. I talk a bit like I have been today, but with a bit more, with slightly shinier outfit and slightly more practiced. For an hour and a half, who died? Who died? But the left, the press and the activists and all the rest of it will do everything they possibly can to prevent it from happening, including just inventing stories about planned protests to create the protests that they've invented. And this is the reason for that is very simple. I persuade people. For all of my, silliness and self-aggrandizing bullshit and all the other obnoxious and irritating things about me, I persuade young people. I'm taking them with me. I'm persuading people who reflexively think of themselves as left-wing or as, whatever. I'm taking them over to the other side of the aisle, like almost no other conservative on the face of the planet. I have an audience that is predominantly under 40, which is, maybe unprecedented anywhere in the globe, for somebody who has conservative and libertarian points of view. And that really, really scares people. It scares the activist leftists of the press. It scares the activists themselves. And so the reason we don't announce venues is that journalists invent bullshit about there being protests planned, to create those protests and to intimidate and bully the venues into cancelling us, which they inevitably do.
So as a follow-up, there are no protesters here today. You sold 10,000 tickets, which is about as many as we got a suburban football game here in Australia. You said there was 900 people that got on your petition to stop you from coming to Australia. Are you worried people just don't care about you here?
No, I think what we've done this time around, which I've never done before, is not release the venues ahead of time. One of the good things about Australia is you just don't have such a huge rump of crazy activist leftists. By and large, Australia is a pretty sensible country. One of the reasons I wanted to come here was to sort of like cut it off at the root, and stop it from germinating in the first place. I think people do. Are you worried people don't care about you? No, I just sold 10,000 tickets. What's wrong with you? No. Am I worried that the left is not motivating and militating and organising against me? Well, they are. There are posters about me all around Sydney. The problem the left has is they don't know where I'm speaking, and neither does anybody else. And I'm not going to tell you. When they have a specific venue to target and a place to assemble, then they go thermonuclear, right? The reason you haven't seen very much, aside from journalists, having a go at me in the Herald, having a go at me in the Guardian, having a go at me in various other publications, cancelling interviews with me because they're worried about, not coming out well in debates with me, is that yes, they are really, really, really fucking worried. And I think the numbers speak for themselves, and my popularity speaks for itself. And were they to have a focal point where they could organise around, because leftists are like herd animals, they need a sort of point to, this is terrible. If you don't give them that focal point to organise around, they're sort of like, they wander around like zombies, kind of headless and confused and vacant, until they're all pointed in one direction. That's the reason you're not seeing massive organised protests. Trust me, everywhere I go where there's a venue named, it's a problem. I can do another one or two, if you like.
No, you can't.
I was going to say you're not the boss of me, but you are.